Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we'll be painting the last member of my Ork Kommando, Rockit Boy. I have covered most of the painting steps in my previous Ork videos, like layering the skin, mixing metallic paints with other acrylics, or using washes and so on. So in this one, I will try to focus on sharing my experiences with these models. What it's like to paint them, which parts are easier or more difficult to get around, and altogether what I learned from finishing a whole unit of these guys. The group consists of 10 orcs and 2 smaller sidekicks, a Gretchen and a Squig. These brutish little guys come in various poses, an assortment of outfits, and the craziest weapons. All very distinct from each other, the only 2 things that unifies them are their ramshackle looks and green skin. Painting orc skin, or in general, any kind of skin, is up to personal preference. With a quick search online, you can find orcs with bright green, deep green, brown, blue, or even red skin. It's up to the painter to make these decisions. That being said, I prefer my commando to have an olive or pistachio colored skin tone with an underlying reddish hue. I can't really explain why, it's just how my brain is wired, I guess. Since my early teens, when we played D&D with my friends, this was the image in my head of orcs and goblins. So, to achieve this look, I base coat the skin with Bugmans glow, then in small increments I add various shades of green and layer up to the desired look. When this is done, I like to go back with a diluted red wash, like Carroburg Crimson, and paint over the knuckles the separation between muscles and on more exposed bits. As you can see, the model is painted in sub-assemblies. I might sound like a downer here, but maybe this is my biggest grief with this unit. There are numerous little items attached to them, and most of them would be difficult to reach if it was fully assembled. 5 or 6 of these orcs are holding a gun, a rifle, or in this case a rocket launcher with both hands. And because they're orcs, their posture is hunched over, which doesn't leave space to paint their chest, belts, or nearly anything in that region. Of course, you can choose to leave these parts unpainted. From a distance, these tiny details aren't even visible, but I suppose there are some of you out there who are similarly completionists and can say that the model is done until every area of it is painted. In any case, these are really cool looking figures when they're all glued together. Just the road to get there is a bit bumpier than on other models, I suppose. Once the skin was done, I moved on to paint the main body of this Rockit Boy. Corvus black, a dark bluish-gray color, was used on the jacket. It is quite an opaque color, so 2 coats were enough to achieve full coverage. The leathery bits, like the belts, were covered with Catachan flesh. As before, I'm starting on the most inner parts of the model and moving out, painting the easy-to-reach areas last. After these parts were done, I moved on to paint the pants, and for this I chose Hobgrot hide. Here I'd like to mention the importance of knowing your paints, especially their physical properties. How good or bad is their coverage, how much you need to dilute them, or how much you need to shake them up before placing it on the palette. Some paints go over a black primer without any problem. Hobgrot hide, or at least my pot of it, does not. Even after a thorough shaking, it still takes 4 or 5 applications to get full coverage. If you find this happening with your paints, it is a good rule of thumb to still apply your layers thinly, use water as needed, and wait for it to dry before painting on the next one. If you try to rush through this process and use undiluted paint, you leave unwanted marks and block recessed details that you can't really fix later on. For the belt buckle, shoe, and other various metallic bits, I use Leadbelcher. If it spills over an already covered area, I just go back to my previous colors and correct things on the fly. The little patch on his pants is painted with Screamer pink. I use this pinkish red to contrast with the surrounding pale colors. I used Agrax Earthshade, a dark brown wash all over the clothing to unify the colors and define the separation between textures. When using shades, I would advise to use them sparingly. try to avoid it collecting on unwanted parts of the model. When the wash gathers on the surface, just use a clean brush to soak up the excess. After the main body was done, I picked up the small patch on his shoulder with rock art flash and used Agrax Earthshade on it as well. The next step is to highlight back the colors and remove the brownish tint from areas where we don't want it to be seen. The dry time of a wash depends on your environment's humidity. I live in a quite dry place, so here it takes about 10 to 15 minutes to fully cure. But in case you're a bit short on time, you can use a hairdryer to speed up the process. One of my favorite things to paint are textures. These small details make clothing look worn and rugged, weapons scratched and dented. This implies lived-in environment, a reality where the mini exists and goes through hardship, which is kind of the theme of Warhammer. For the jacket, I used 3 paints, one for the shadows, one for the midtones, and one for the highlights. Each lighter layer covers less and less area on the model. With this technique, we can define the parts where the light would hit the surface. Also, the sometimes haphazard brush strokes imitate texture in the fabric. The same concept is used on all the other parts as well, like the leather straps, boots, the trousers, and the metallic areas. The bolts and rivets are highlighted with a bright silver, Stormhost silver. This is done to increase visual interest. For a spot of color, I paint the shoelaces with a bright orange. Once that's done, I re-establish rock art flash on the shoulder patches. When that's done, I start to paint the Orc's head. For this, I use the same base colors as before, Corvus black on the leathery hood and Leadbelcher on the mask. Once these are done, I add a bit of bright orange and red to stay in line with the chosen color scheme. I wait for the colors to dry, then with Agrax Earthshade I cover all the areas. For the lenses, I use the white base coat, then fill them in with green and red contrast paint, as these two are opposing colors. While that's drying, I grab a brighter version of the base colors and start to layer up the textures, giving them depth and definition. When the head is done, I mix a dark silver and apply it on the rocket launcher, trying my best not to paint over the skin. The crosshair gets painted with a deep red and some other parts with a copper color, Balthasar gold. To base coat the rockets, I used an off-white Wraithbone. It has good coverage and white is a good base color in case you later want to paint over it with bright colors. My plan here was to use 4 different colors so every rocket looks a bit different. The cable was covered with a light blue Vallejo's blue-green. When that was done, I've painted stripes on it using a previously used deep red. When all the colors are established, I go over the weapon with Agrax and the cables with Drakenhof Nightshade, a blue wash. After the washes have dried, I reapply the base colors, then mix in some lighter colors to pick out the edges and add some more weathering. The backpack is painted with the exact same technique as the other parts of the mini: base coats, shades, then highlights and weathering. If you're interested to see more in-depth tutorial on how I paint backpacks, you can check out one of my previous Ork videos. So in conclusion, I really enjoyed working on this unit of Orks. They're an excellent mix of scary and goofy, and whenever I pick them up they make me smile. They're filled with detail and character, and I wouldn't mind painting a couple more in the future. By dedicating time to a unit, we can improve our skills and get familiar with a set of miniatures and painting techniques. My realization at the end was that I got too comfortable and didn't try to implement new techniques. It was easy to rely on the holy trinity of base coat, shade and highlight. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you're more of a player than a painter, that's all you need. But I like to push myself and create minis with more realism, color depth and detail. Ultimately, these green guys taught me to get out of my comfort zone, stay curious and experiment with new ways of painting. After finishing the backpack, it was time to finish the base of the model. As you might expect, I used the exact same methods as before: dark brown base coat on the ground, grey base coat on the rubble, then dry brush the lighter colors to bring out the detail of the texture paste. When that was done, I grabbed a black and brown wash and applied it without much thought or consideration. Finally, the mandatory black rim was achieved by painting Abaddon black all around the base. And that's it, another one bites the dust, I guess. I grabbed some super glue to assemble the parts and the Rockit Boy was done, ready to join his jolly team of green-skinned brigands. Thank you for sticking around until the end. Here are the final shots of the finished mini and some group shots of the whole unit. I hope these tutorials were informative and you could pick up a trick or two. If you have any further questions, please leave them down in the comment section below. Thanks again for watching and goodbye.